think of the word masculinity, to me, the one word definition of masculinity is responsibility. It's taking responsibility for those things that are entrusted to me. That means for my family, my responsibilities at work. When God created Adam, what did he do? He said, take dominion over the earth. He didn't say conquer the earth. He said, be responsible to the earth.
Hello, welcome to Like-Minded Servants with me, Cecil Graves, where leaders and entrepreneurs come to get better every day. We're going to pick right up where we left off last time with Pastor Paul Downing on failing forward inside the home. So, Pastor Paul, he's back here with me. Let's just jump right back in where we left off last time and let you kind of let's just talk about failing forward for a minute with you. What is that?
Well, first I want to clarify something. It's not that the child doesn't get an opportunity to fail. It's that they are not course corrected. They're not corrected when they fail because they're so often in isolation. And so the family needs to try to be a safe to fail environment where when a child does fail, there's correction and training, and they learn the lesson. And you mentioned the book Failing Forward by John Maxwell, and if you remember, he quotes Cherie Carter Scott, and she says there are no mistakes in life, there's no failures, there's only lessons. And rule number one is you'll have lessons. Rule number two is that the lesson will repeat itself until it's learned. Rule number three is that until the lesson's learned, the lessons get harder. Then when the lesson is learned, rule number four, you move forward. So failing forward is learning the lessons we need to learn in order to get us to the next phase. So the family needs to be a safe to fail environment. And what I mean by that is that when the child fails or does something wrong or something like that, they are taught choice management. This is why this situation happened. That's let me just give you an example. It'd be the easiest thing. So when my son was like 2, I caught him heading to an electric receptacle with a pair of scissors. And so I knew what he was going to do. And so I said, Paul, stop. And he just ignored me. So I went and got him and got the scissors, and I put them on the counter thinking he wouldn't reach them. I said, no, this is no, don't do this. Well, I went into the back room and I was gone maybe five seconds. I came back. He had already built this elaborate elevator.
Wow.
He just put a couple of chairs on, a little stool on top of a chair. He climbed up on the chair and he was on the stool getting the scissors. So the safe to fail part is me correcting him and teaching him this is not what we do. And then my lesson was put the scissors out of sight,
Right.
But his lesson was you're going to get disciplined right now for a choice that you made against my will. And the reason it's safe to fail is he didn't get killed by sticking the scissors in the electric socket. When children don't get those life lessons in the safe to fail environment of home, they get out of the home, and because they haven't learned choice management, that good choices, wise choices bring good results, and unwise choices bring not so good results. life is not a safe to fail environment. So when they do something at their job and their boss corrects them, instead of course correcting to get mad at their boss, quit their job, or fire off at their boss, they get fired, and then they can't pay rent. It starts escalating. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is that there's a safe to fail environment that we need to create in our families, so that it doesn't become an unsafe to fail environment in life when they leave the home.
What I'm hearing you say, and I'm trying to help dads, fathers, business owners see this, how it fits into a business as well. So if you're disconnect with your kids at the house and things are just happening, failures are happening, but there's no course correction. You don't really know your kids and their possibilities in some of the households today. So you really, that rolls over into the team at the office. If I'm disconnected from the team, then I don't know my team really well. Mm-hmm. I'm not connected in the household. You're not connected to the kid. You're not connected to the team. So how can you make an educated course correction with that child or that team if you're disconnected as a parent, right?
Right. So, it's hard to do that.
Right. Yeah. So that failing forward is crucial, but that failing forward actually educates the person that's watching it as well, to know what that person's capable of, know where they are at in their journey,
how they think.
So it's just, when I'm listening to you, it's just doing more than just that little episode of sticking the scissors into the receptacle. So many more things are happening there, not just for him, not just for the 2-year-old, but for you. You both learned, but in order for both of you to learn, you have to both be there, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we were talking earlier about responsibility, and that's part of learning responsibility. Without responsibility, there's no freedom. Our society today says we want freedom without responsibility, but there can be no freedom without responsibility. Paul didn't get the scissors back because he was irresponsible with them. Until he learned to be responsible with them, he didn't get scissors back. Once he got that aspect of responsibility, that I don't go near receptacles, I don't cut my sister's hair or their Barbie doll's hair, then he could have scissors. And the freedom he got from that was that he could do his own artwork and things like that. So what we're teaching our children by choice management, our job is not to control behavior. That's not a parent's job. We don't, it's not just to slap them back in line.
Make them into who we want them to be.
Right. Correct. It's to help them learn responsible choice management. And what I mean by that is they learn that there are wise choices and unwise choices, healthy choices and unhealthy choices. And every choice we make has a consequence. Some of them are good consequences, some of them are bad consequences. I think the best definition of irresponsibility I ever heard was trading what you want most for what you want now. If I want a great marriage, then I don't want to trade just
instant gratification.
Yeah. For that's going to sabotage what I want most.
Right.
Responsibility means looking constantly and nurturing what I want most.
The end goal.
Well, then later on, the what now tends to take care of itself. Mm-hmm. What I want now tends to take care of itself.
So you're saying you look at the goal, the successful marriage, and the way to make that make sense is to do something that day. Maybe it's a devotional with your spouse or taking her on a date or doing something with her, doing those little steps.
Or just listening to her day.
Or just listening to her day. That's a huge one. When you get home in the evening, you're wore out, just listening to her day and serving her. But doing those little things daily will help you reach your goal. You don't need to focus so much on the goal as you do the little things that bring
the daily habits.
The daily habits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, tell us, talking about the failing forward, the masculinity today, before we get to our surprise, what could dads, let's just go to the younger dad. Let's go to the well, they're probably a little bit later. They're having kiddos now, but the early 20s to 30-year-old Paul and Cecil. How can we go to them today and give them 1, 2, 3 things equated masculinity to responsibility to help start installing this back into the homes?
So I think the first thing is learn to be the adult that you want your child to grow into. You know, leading is first by example. Your children are not going to do what you say until they see you do it, you know. And so if you want your children to be responsible adults, you set the bar. You become a responsible adult. Then the second thing is engage with your kids. Find ways to engage with your kids. And, you know, that may be after the ball game that you go out and get ice cream or something, and then you ask them about their experience instead of you trying to correct what they've done wrong. You're not their coach. Let their coach be their coach. Mm-hmm. You be their refuge, you know, where they and let them see. Going back to that verse, Philippians 2, 3-5. Let them see that you value them and you care about their interest, and you're not trying to make them into little mini-me's or your ideal of what you want them to be. You're just you can exemplify the ideal, you know, you can model that, but don't try to force fit them into that. And then I think, you know, this is just coming from a Christian perspective. My dad never beat me over the head with the Bible or, you know, shouted scripture at me.
Yeah.
He wasn't so much about what I should think as a person or as a follower of Christ. He taught me how to think. And one way he did that is he just lived his faith. He lived the Bible. He's like, if you're familiar with the Beatitudes in the Bible, he was a walking example of that. And so because of that, when he did course correct me, it held so much weight. He hardly ever raised his voice. In fact, a lot of times he would do something like this. He'd come home and say my brother and I were watching television. He might look out the window and go, "Boy, that grass is getting high." And my brother and I would just turn off the TV and start going mowing the grass, because we knew that that's that his heart was at that moment. Hey, I want you to go cut the grass.
Right.
Well, it held weight because of the countless hours he spent with us when we were younger. He told us bedtime stories at night. He played chase around these mimosa trees with us when he come home from work. He just was magical in inventing games to engage with us, you know. Yeah. Like he put pinned towels around us, like beach towels, like Superman capes, and push us on swings and pretend we were, superheroes. Well, he worked a lot. but the times that he had with us, he made the most of those times. He engaged with us. And I think those are the three things that you need to, those are simple things.
Simple things that are applicable. And even I'm guilty. I know I hear it from dads in the mastermind that I coach, the men that I coach and things. It's that you feel guilty when you get home and you just want to break, but those little people are looking at you, needing you. And it doesn't really take much to impact them. A book, or running around the yard with them, or getting in the pool with them, or going for a walk, or just yesterday I sat down with one of mine, and since she started school yesterday, and I just told her to come sit by me while the other ones are watching TV, and I said, just tell me how you liked your new school. It's a new school here in Zachary. It's a new school for her. She's I would say a heavy introvert, but I just was intentional with my time, and I just listened. And sometimes I think we just complicate so much when all we got to do, we got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Mm-hmm. And the other person, we're able to serve them so much better if we just listen.
Yeah.
And ask. You know, John Maxwell says the one that asks the most questions and the best questions always wins. Mm-hmm. So why can't we do that with our children today? And I think that would help install some of that masculinity. Now I'm talking about, Amelia, she's my daughter, but this can roll over to our sons. This can roll over to just stabilizing the Christian home if we're more intentional with our time.
Yeah. Well, I want to address 2 things that you mentioned. One is needing the break. Here's the thing. Men do need a break. Men.
Thank you. Did y'all hear that? We can say that again.
Yeah. The way we're wired is, go out, hunt, bag the game, come home, rest, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we need that little break. We just need to find a way to get that break before we engage with the kids, so that we're and with our wives, so that we're not all tense and distant.
Right.
When I was in the counseling ministry, and there were just so many, people just dumping, for hours. One of the older counselors that were in the ministry said, just pretend you're a big bucket, and if there's a bridge on your commute home, when you get to that bridge, roll down the window and throw out the bucket, and just release everything before you get home. Yeah. So then you're ready to engage. The second thing that I want to mention is, you asked me to give you 3 things. Well, I'm going to give you 4. I think the best thing that a man can do for his children is to love his wife and to show tender compassion, especially in front of his children, to his wife. Now, I know that when I'm saying there's a lot of people who are divorced and, different homes. So if a person is divorced from their children's moms, never speak ill of their mom. Never speak ill. And if a woman's listening, never speak ill of the husband. Because children instinctively know that the most important relationship in the home is between husband and wife, and it gives them security. And if that relationship's not working, then there's going to be insecurity. So it's very important that we men take the responsibility to love our wives as Christ loved the church. Too often our emphasis is leading our wives. It never tells us anywhere in Scripture to lead our wives. It tells us to love our wives and follow Christ. If we love our wives and follow Christ, then we are leading.
Right. We're doing it at a level that makes sense. And we started on masculinity, and I think if people are like me, I don't know, I may just think like this. I think we need to do some type of Thor type stuff to install masculinity, but nothing we have talked about today has been any of the hammer bringing it down on anybody, has it? We talked about just the basics and trying to do those basics brilliantly in the home on a small scale, one little episode or one relationship at a time. So I hope today that you as the viewers, you saw the simplicity and how we can just go back to the Bible and really just reconnecting in the house. I think is the screaming word here is we're disconnected in the house, and we need to reconnect with our wives, with our husbands, and
The children.
with our children. That's so important. That's so important. The comment I made in the previous episode, if boys don't learn, men won't know. This is boys and girls learning. They need to see that model in front of them. And I'm guilty. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying we have the perfect household, but I know from visiting with people like Pastor Paul, listening to John Maxwell, listening to Craig Groeschel, you have access to all this. You have a pastor that's just looking for you to come to church and wanting to help you, just like Pastor Paul. Maybe not as good as Pastor Paul, but
Or as masculine.
or as masculine, or as masculine as Pastor Paul. But you have resources. You have resources inside of the little square computer that you're listening to me on, that you can be more intentional with turning off an entertainment podcast. Not saying that stuff's not important, but if you're going to be intentional and grow in that household and have the fuel to help those little people and help your wife, you're going to have to invest in yourself, and you're going to have to listen to them when you get home. So I hope this has been impactful for you. We're going to get into what I think is pretty cool, because me and Pastor Paul are starting something at similar times. He's had, if you haven't looked at it on social media, Daybreak Devotions with Paul Downing, and it's awesome. I mean, it's every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see these guys, commenting. You can tell which ones are on there every day. So I think he, like me, is doing something every day, serving people. I know he is. And how do you take that to the next level? And it seems like a podcast platform is a good place to do that. So is it okay if you maybe tell our viewers what's coming?
Sure. So I started writing the Daybreak Devotions primarily as a way to continue parenting my kids after they were out of the house, after they're grown. Yeah. And so I'd write a devotion that I thought would help them grow in their love for God and the practical application of Scripture to daily life, to every detail of life. And I would email it to them. And then I discovered they weren't checking their emails, but they were checking Facebook all the time. So I just write it, post it on Facebook on my personal feed, and just tag them. And of course, their friends started reading it. My wife's friends started reading it. My Facebook friends started reading them. And then,
how long ago was this, roughly?
It was about 6 years ago.
Okay.
And then I got this call from a guy in Texas, a businessman who had gone through a really traumatic illness and was in the hospital. Actually died on the table, and they brought him back. And as he was recovering, somehow he discovered Daybreak Devotions with Paul Downing, and he called me and just told me how much they ministered to them. Well, this was before the devotional page. He discovered the devotions, and he encouraged me to start a devotional page. And so one of the friends at church helped me start that devotional page. And now what I'm finding is, people are still reading the devotions, but honestly, social media is it's much more video based now. People are reading less and watching videos more.
Yeah.
And I just think the next step is to bring things through video and the spoken word, and still have the written word available, the written devotions available. But I think something like a podcast and video feeds on Facebook will be much more effective.
I think so too. And I think even you said it to me when we were talking about Craig's recent book that we're doing together. Hearing his voice read that book to you and giving you the landing words where you hear the impact inside of it, I think is going to be so cool with your platform, because you've already put in a lot of work. You basically have a library full of just podcasts. So getting your voice, your take on it, and them not leaving with just reading it, because I'm guilty of it in the morning. Sometimes I'll hit on the daily verse and then hit on the video of the person in the Bible app reading it to me. But I'm almost like, man, I got to go do 11 other things. I don't have time to read the entire, and I hate that. I hate feeling like that, because I should take the time to read it. But I think you're covering all the grounds of how people are connecting today, and I think it's a terrific move. I can't wait to see it. So hopefully, what you think before the year's over, maybe getting started?
It'll probably be after the new year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to thank you for encouraging me to do that. And, also I have a friend named Brandon Creighton who really encouraged me.
He's here looking with us right
Yeah.
now. I wish these guys were over here with us.
Yeah, he actually encouraged me about a year ago to do it. And then after you encouraged me, I re-engaged with him, and he encouraged me again. So
just some encouraging people at church.
yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
yeah. How about that?
Doing at church?
How about that? That's how the body of Christ needs to be.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, the church needs to be a safe to fail environment, right?
Right.
So,
failing forward at church.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know, or if you haven't looked at his Facebook, it's on Facebook. Is it anywhere else right now?
It's on just on Facebook.
Just on Facebook.
I do have an email list that I send them out to, and if a person wants to be on,
they can message you on Facebook.
Yeah, they could just
to get on that.
Yep.
It's Daybreak Devotions with Paul Downing.
Correct.
Right. It's super cool. Check it out. And that is how you'll know when his podcast starts, when it starts at the first of the year. So if it's easier for you on your commutes to catch his Daybreak Devotion, do that. Get that podcast going with Pastor Paul, and I can't wait to see it happen. I know it'll bring a lot of life to a lot of people. We want to thank you. Come to a close today, Pastor Paul, and thank you for sitting here with us and sharing what you have. That's the key to me learning. That's the key to anybody learning, is the guy that's already been down the path. Well, that brings this podcast to a close. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's impacted you like it has me. If it has, go share this. We're on all social media platforms as well as all podcast platforms. So I'll leave you with that. So go serve someone well today.